So, it's the 20th of August. This is the Board of Delegates meeting for the FCC. One of the hats. Let's start with a roll call.
Let's have it.
Here.
Airport Heights. Basher. Bay Shore Plat. Bear Valley. Birchwood is not present. Campbell Park. Chukiak. Oh, my, but we're not organized. Eagle River. Eagle River Valley. Fairview. Yes. Hello. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Girdwood.
Yes.
Glen Alps. Government Hill said they would not be present. Hillside. Huffman O'Malley.
Here.
Welcome back. Midtown.
Here.
No, Midtown.
Here.
Mountain View.
Yes.
North Star.
Here.
Oh.
Did you get Mariana, did you get Midtown?
I did, Chris, thank you. And also, just to circle back, I do have Kevin Feynman from Campbell Park.
Hey, can I
North.
Because I sent in a message. I am having an extremely difficult time understanding people. And we had talked about this earlier. Do you have the capabilities of putting it in so that I can read what people are saying?
You can start captions on your side. At the bottom, it says captions.
Okay, I don't understand anything you're saying. I'm sorry, this is my problem, but we had talked about it a couple months ago, and I was really hoping that
Can you
available.
Okay, Allie's gonna message you. I'm gonna move on with roll call in the meantime.
Sure.
Northeast. I saw her.
Present.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. Old Seward Ocean View.
Present.
Rabbit Creek. Whoop, I just got a bunch of people. We got some people running late. Okay. I'll circle back. And then Rogers Park. Russian Jack.
Here.
Yeah. Sand Lake. Scenic Foothills.
Yes,
South Edition.
Yeah.
Oh. Roger, are you here for Scenic Foothills?
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here for Scenic Foothills.
Thank you. Bernard. Here. Taku Campbell. Shooter. Turnigan. Here. Turnigan R. And University.
Here.
And I think I see downtown. I see her. Hillside.
So my boss was able to look up the amount. So it was $5,604.
Oh. And I see Rabbit Creek as well, correct?
Present.
And Bear Valley.
I'm here.
Yay! Okay. Okay. I think we have form. We should have enough.
Okay, great. Okay, forward. So we have a fairly short agenda for the FCC meeting, but I would entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Thank you very much. And second, thank you. Any objections? Not seeing or hearing any, so agenda is approved. And, sorry.
I just didn't catch who the first was. Thank you,
Sharon. And we will do the same for approval of minutes from the last meeting, is in here. Would anyone like to move to approve last meeting's minutes? We're back in June. Thank you. And second from Steve. Did you second, Steve? Yeah, thank you. Again, if there are no objections, or for objections, not seeing any, so our minutes are approved. Now move on to committee updates.
Yes.
So this is where we have exciting use of new technology. Not that.
Because we don't have a treasurer right now, we have a video report from our accountant. And also in your board packet, you'll find the second quarter report in regards to our, it should be the back page. We had a lot of paper today, so we don't sign it, but should be the last page, is the second quarter budget versus actuals. In it.
I don't hear anything.
There's no sound.
Thank you.
That's no sounds. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He did about, what were the last days? You want to do the bylaws in the back of this one? No.
I'll do like first and second, see if we can fix this. It should play, I mean, we can play through all the light devices on the phone.
That's, and that's,
No,
I have the right.
It's not working, okay.
It's just.
You have to like, I don't know why this is.
It's a play button.
It's a audio issue. We're working on getting the audio synced into the Zoom call. Cause we can hear the audio in the room, but Zoom can't hear the audio.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's a couple of ways to do this.
I am going to stop share and reshare to see if maybe that's the hang up here. I still have it open in the tab if this doesn't work.
I don't think it's that, I think it's the.
It's that
Shared
shared
chat.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
We're gonna go back over there.
And producing financial statements for Ari or the treasurer or the chair to present at your meeting monthly. But Ari reached out to me here in early August and asked if I could present at your meeting today. And I said, I'm more than happy to, but I'm actually recording this video on August 11th because as you watch this video on August 20th and attend the meeting, I am currently somewhere in the middle of Canada driving the Alcan, of probably avoiding potholes as we speak. So I wanted to record this little video before your meeting. Hopefully it's informative for you all. If it generates any questions that Ari is unable to answer or doesn't have the information, please feel free to reach out. Ari, if you want to jot some notes down, I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have. I'm going to present the budget versus actual statement here. I'm going to share my screen. And this budget versus actual statement is January 1 through June of 2025. It's laid out in this column right here is our actual expenses that were represented from January through June. And then this column is our budget. There are 5 main accounts that we use for the municipal grant. Those accounts are personnel services. And when I say accounts, these aren't bank accounts, these are account codes, sorry. So personnel services, overhead, outreach and training, occupancy, and other. And other is kind of a collect all of everything that does not fit into those 4 other accounts. The budget versus actual statement, you can see that there's a bunch of blanks right here in the budget. And the reason behind that is when we submit our quarterly municipal grant report, we report, as defined by the grant, the parent accounts. So personnel services and the other four that I just walked through there. Internally here at FCC, we want to break it out more than that, obviously, so we have an idea of what we're spending our money on. And so that's why when you look at these sub accounts here, there's no actual budget next to them. The budget is based on the total of the sub accounts or the actual parent accounts themselves. So first account is personnel services. This is Ari's wages. This is Ari's fringe benefits, which consist of retirement account, match, and health insurance reimbursement. This is Allie's wages. This is the same exact retirement account and health insurance reimbursement for Allie. And then this is the payroll taxes associated with the wages here and the wages here. Payroll taxes are three things. It is Social Security tax at 6.2%, Medicare tax at 1.45%, and State of Alaska unemployment insurance at 1%. The Social Security and Medicare taxes are paid in 1 or 2 days after the actual paychecks, and the State of Alaska unemployment insurance is paid in quarterly through or to the State of Alaska. So that's what that number is. Personnel services adds up to $91,058.50. We've budgeted $98,558. We are under budget on personnel services by about $7,500. Next account is overhead accounting. Gee, I wonder where that one goes. That's my fee right there. Utilities is telecommunications. Office equipment rental is the copier rent. Insurance for the FCC, and IT tech support there at the office. Total $5,475.26 for overhead. We budgeted $8,125 for overhead. So again, we are under budget on overhead, $2,649.74. Next account is outreach and training. So physical outreach of paper mailing and brochures and that kind of stuff, $749.96. Digital outreach of $2,945.30, training of $6,888.12, and insurance for the community council, so not for FCC, but for all of the community councils is $368. Total outreach $10,942.38. Budgeted $9,750. So over budget a little bit by $1,192.38 for outreach and training. Occupancy, this has everything to do with rent effectively. This is the rent at the Fireweed office there. This is the fee that we paid to the municipality for the annual picnic. And this is a little bit, I believe this was a TV mount that we installed there, or was paid to be installed at the office of a Fireweed. Total occupancy of 3,507.02. Budgeted 3,500, tracking almost exactly perfect, just a little $7 over budget for occupancy. And then other, like I said at the beginning, is kind of a collect all of everything else. This is office supplies, $332.89, membership dues of $607.10, and bank charges to Global Federal Credit Union of $150. This is actually ACH fees for the direct deposit of payroll. That's what this is right here. So $1,089.99 in other, budgeted $815 in other, over budget by $274.99. Our total actual expenses of those 5 categories are $112,073.15, and the 6-month budget, or effectively half of the budget, is $120,748. Under budget through all of the categories, $8,674.85. I know that was a lot to consume there, but that's kind of the way it shakes out. So again, as I said, if you have any questions about anything, please feel free to reach out. More than happy to answer anything that is unanswerable, is that a word, by Ari. So hope you have a great rest of your meeting. Hope this is informative for you, and take care. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
I want to say thank you to Bo, but I don't think you can hear me from the extra top hole on the outskirts.
Can I just add
Yeah.
one thing for this? When we talk about being over budget or under budget, the way the budget versus actual works is we're on accrual basis, so it breaks everything out by a 12 months and we get paid quarterly. But obviously payments to things don't come always in like perfect 12-month increments. A lot of times we pay for constant contact and emails and Zoom upfront, right? And we pay for insurance at the end of the year, and I pay yearly subscriptions at various points, and our summit and, you know, the majority of our training happened earlier in the year. So when it says like we're under budget, we're over budget, we're under budget for the year right now. And with all of our expected, I'll say, as I like track the budget. And this is just in comparison of like, if everything came exactly every month and every bill was always equal, like this is what the budget's trying to say, but obviously that's not how things work, so.
Any other questions about the report? So we're doing these quarterly.
Quarterly.
So this is our half year report. I'm not seeing any questions online in the room. So we'll move on to bylaw committee. So we did a short work session before this meeting, just to cover some initial questions on the bylaws, bylaw proposal. I guess I'm hiding the lead. The lead is the bylaw committee kind of went through and produced a full set of proposed bylaws, and that is available. The online, shared with the delegates and in this document. So this is our proposed bylaws. We're not really going to be discussing them tonight, but it's here, and I encourage people who are interested to start reading through these. We also have two graphics, which are kind of a very, very high level overview. This one, which is kind of conceptually what the bylaws are doing. So in our current structure, every delegate from community councils is a member of our sort of controlling board. You have a board of delegates, you have responsibilities to the FCC, etc., etc. And then there's a small number of people elected as officers to do some of the grunt work. But every delegate has sort of responsibilities to the organisation. Not perhaps everybody knows that. We obviously have a churn of delegates. So that creates some issues when it comes to long-term stability. So the new bylaws basically proposes this two-stage process. So we have the membership, which is again delegates, effectively delegates from community councils. They elect a board of directors, and the board of directors runs the FCC. So that's this slightly different structure, and that means there's a number of things in the bylaws which look a little different from now. But that's the general concept. And then you have the other one.
Yep.
And then the other graphic we produced is basically a quick cheat sheet of what our current bylaws do at the highest level, what the new ones will do at the highest level. So this is kind of like an initial guide, and then the gory details are in the proposal here. So what's next? We have another bylaw committee meeting on supposedly the 2nd of September. It will probably get rescheduled to shortly after that.
Yeah.
But the first week of September. We're gonna, if there's any feedback people have immediately, you can get it to us before the first week of September. We'll consider it that bylaw committee. We're probably gonna just go through it all again, make sure we all understand it, make sure we know how we're going to present it, deal with any remaining issues. And then in the September meeting, we will introduce it and discuss it in more detail here, with the intention of then bringing it back in October. And if people are comfortable with the changes, voting on it in October. If there's still work to be done, we'll move that forward into November, hopefully not beyond November, but November or later. So we want to make sure that everyone is comfortable with the new bylaws and understands what that means. So that's our current proposal. Yeah, ask a question.
Would there be any benefits for neutral, doesn't matter, if everything took into effect at the beginning of next year? January one
Yeah.
versus fall of,
Yeah.
third quarter of one year.
We actually haven't put the date in here, but there will be a date at which it would start. But
Okay.
it probably won't be the instant it's voted in. I think the intention is to have things start at the beginning of January. So again, I would encourage you to read the at least sort of understand the two overview sheets, and then if you're interested in the details, go into the details there. A couple of other people from the bylaw committee are here. I'll just give them the opportunity to make any other comments, and then we'll take the question again. Does anybody have anything to add?
There's an comment.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll give you the opportunity, Valerie.
Oh, no,
Okay, Ken, question.
As we're reading through these, are there changes already in here? Is there like a red line version so we know what was changed?
Pretty much everything is changed.
our existing bylaws were 3 pages. And so, to do that level of comparison, if the whole document would be changes, I can send you, or it's on our website, the existing bylaws, but a lot of what we were doing and why it got longer was getting best practice for nonprofit bylaws into our bylaws. Like ours were extraordinarily short and did not cover a lot of things that we should have covered. So that is the stuff that's some of like just what it went in, and it would be quite extensive to explain it in all of those little details.
So this is the draft.
That's the draft
This is the
version of
draft.
all the edits.
Yes.
I guess the other thing I would say is a member of the bylaw committee was Daryl Hess as well, municipal ombudsman. And because we felt with his experience in community councils and his longtime support of the FCC, that he would have some really good, and he also has experience with boards and commissions, he would have some really good insight, and he absolutely did. So, keeping our champion in our corner.
And we also have sent the Senate draft through the attorney.
Yes.
Through Foraker, who we use from time to time as well, so they've at least looked through it.
This version has been vetted by legal.
Okay, if there are no further questions, we'll have a more extensive discussion on that next month. Move on to item number 4, discussion topic, treasurer. So our treasurer resigned just before, or just after June. Yep. So we currently do not have a treasurer, which is why we have Bo present the 6-month financial review. I guess we would be interested in.
Do you want to talk a
Anybody?
little bit about like what that position would be in light of the change?
Less work, probably.
Short term, right? Like.
Oh yeah, sorry, 2 things. First of all, anyone who volunteers now, there would be a replacement of officers when we go into new bylaws. So it would be only until I think probably February is when we're expecting if the new bylaws are adopted as is, there would be new officers in place next February. So if anyone wants to volunteer, it's a 4 or 5 month stint, and you can run away at the end of that. Or realize how much fun it is. The intent with the new structure is a lot of, at the moment you have again this large board of delegates and then a small number of officers. The new structure has the board of directors in between, so a lot of the work some of the work comes off of officers and moves to the board. So the intent is for it to be less work for the officers in the future. But that would be something to worry about if you want to stand in February, not something necessarily to worry about today.
The other thing is that you have now seen our lovely accountant. He's great. Not a board member, so. But he and I and the treasurer make up the finance committee, and it's the committee, since we only do reports quarterly, only probably has to meet once or twice more, can meet more if you're interested, but just in like the workload over the next 4 months, we're talking 1 executive committee meeting a month, and then, we can meet as the treasurer wants to meet essentially, so a couple extra hours, not a ton of work, I'm not asking for the
Yeah,
moon.
there is work on the budget, but that's already happened this year. So the bulk of the workload is already occurred.
We were in before anyone.
Yep. So this is a fairly manageable and very light workload for the next couple of
If
months.
you know nothing about finances, that is okay, like, do not worry. It's not scary. Online people without your cameras on, I see you and you're still part of this conversation.
So obviously, if anyone really wants to volunteer now, just say so. But if not, just send us a note. Either Ari is probably the best person to contact. If you're interested in filling this role for the just the next few months. Thank you. I don't think we have anything more to add to that discussion.
Oh, Daniel George, I will sit here and stare at you for 2 minutes.
I forgot about that.
Okay,
Okay.
so we will now move on to comment period. If anyone has any comments on the FCC side of things.
Oh, I have one comment, if you're okay, really quick. Chelsea Ward Waller from PME has emailed all of the board chairs about asking for feedback about the CIP. So please, if you have any from your committees, from this year, from the process, now is the time to get that in so that they can take that into account before next year's. And please pass that information along to, if you have somebody who's managing your CIP, if you have a committee head or just a general committee, whoever's most excited about CIP and has some feedback, she's willing to meet with your committee, have a phone conversation, take it via email, like she'll meet with you however she can. So please don't ignore that email. Kathy, sorry.
Yes, I just wanted to thank, the FCC staff for hosting the annual picnic that we had over at, a month ago.
Huh?
So thank you, it's very nice.
We had food this time.
Yeah.
The barbecue didn't die. It wasn't pouring rain. It was actually really lovely.
Very nice. Nice evening.
Had a good turnout. Was in Northeast District. They didn't come. But we're gonna move. So if you wanna be the community council that we have our next one, you let me know. I wanna move around.
And we can skip it too, is that?
Yes, exactly.
I just wanted to clarify.
Oh, is it free But yes, we wanna move around and have them in different parks every year. We just need some sort of like picnic table and cover. So your park has that.
Okay.
Caitlin Jackson says Fair Valley.
I'm with it.
Who's I'm gonna make you all go to Eagle River. Just wait.
They could have a bus.
There are neighbors.
Bus.
Oh, no, sorry, that's.
Party bus.
Party buses.
Wenzel Portage is saying.
We're all going to Birdwood next year. That's what I'm getting. Allie has a party.
No, well, that's one of them, we're actually rebuilding one of the bonfire on the business. We're rebuilding one of the pavilions actually.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, I think we can move on to the coalition meeting. It's 6:30.
Do you want to talk a little bit about why it's different first?
Well, yes, sure. Well, let's open the meeting first of all. So coalition meeting, 6:30 now. So we're moving some of the formal reports from school board and assembly. We're going to have written reports. We're going to have occasional in-person reports, but the intent is not to have every meeting. Sometimes that can take a bunch of time. If there are very specific things where there's nothing needed, we'll definitely invite. But if we're not going to try and do written reports, and there is a written report, the ASD.
This time.
Oh, this time, yeah,
This
we're
is-
gonna try it this time.
No, we were trying it because we're trying to fit a lot of presentations in this meeting.
Oh,
So
I'd like to do it more.
Okay. We may
So-
consider doing it more often.
We're gonna see how it goes.
But it is helpful if you have somebody from those entities here, if they have questions.
Yes, so
Just-
we've been having, what I would like to do is have them not every single meeting. We're trying it this time. If people don't like it, we'll have to go back to the other one. If people like, written reports, we can follow that pattern. I have a preference. But that's because I see the same people at every meeting I go to all month, so, I'm probably a little biased. And that might come through. But, so at least today, written reports,
This meeting specifically, we did it
this one
so that
specifically because of
we
the-
had time, because Tisdo came up suddenly, we wanted to make sure we had time to talk about that, talk with, PME and also talk about better public meetings, and that just meant we made a decision that the presentations were a little bit more important this month. And then maybe we talked about also using the reports, or using the presentations from elected officials and municipal departments maybe in a different way. If we have one person come and we get more time with them occasionally, that might be of use too, where like if we have a topic we're interested in discussing, you can spend some more quality time with them. And
So I think that's the essence. We want to do this in a better way, if there are ways to do it. So the question on like,
Pamela, do you have a question? Hey Pamela? Do you have a question? I'm not sure I understand your comment in the chat.
Sorry, it took me a minute to find the little mic. So I just want to, if you could just synopsize what you said, clarify. You're asking, and
okay,
I got this wrong. You're asking for them to give written reports early so that we can get them to read through. And secondarily, if they're available to be able to be present to address questions that would be coming forward. Is that what I understood?
I'll rephrase it. I was a little preemptive in what I said. I'm outlining how I would like you to do it. Not group. So for this meeting only, we have just had written reports. We're thinking about whether we can do the report process in a better way, which could be having a subset of reports each meeting so they can go into more detail. It could be we focus things which are most pressing. It could be reverting back to the previous method. So treat today as an experiment where we use the written form, written reports only. We'll go back to in person or online next month, and then we may have a discussion about how this works better going forwards. But for today, it's written only because we have some other presentations. Next month, it will be the way it used to be. Is that clearer? I
Yeah,
hope that's
thank
answered your
you.
question.
That takes some mud out of it. Only, I'm just trying to find the written report. Are you putting them up or did we get them and I just didn't see it?
They should be with the current agenda on the website. I can drop it in the chat.
Okay, having got through that messily, let's move on to council updates.
Yes. Rabbit Creek through the university area. Rabbit Creek, John, are you here and do you want to start us off?
Sure. Rabbit Creek has not met since June. We've been focusing since then on a couple of things. One is the old the old Rabbit Creek Road behind Potter Marsh there, for those who may not get down there very often, is currently designed as a major collector, which is 1,000 to 5,000 cars a day. And so it's not really designed for the recreational stuff that we'd like to develop more down there. So we're looking at perhaps getting it reclassified as a minor collector, which would allow some more, the potential for perhaps some development, some trails along the side of the road there. And secondly, we testified in support of the Muni's transit-supported development corridors proposal to focus housing development where public transit services already exist or can be developed most easily. So those are the two highlights from us.
Thank you. I don't think we have Rogers Park, so Russian Jack.
Russian Jack has not met since May. But I will, and I did thank all of the delegation that was there at the picnic for not only our state delegation, but also the mayor's office for the cleanup of the Russian Jack Springs Park, dog park, where all of the people that left Davis and the snow dump, or a good part of them, went after the one was abated, which took a little longer than I know all the residents would like. The one thing I'll note is while there were some fires, they were just in the sod, and it doesn't appear to have caused any fires long-term, especially since the neighborhood is a lot closer in that area than it was with the other two. So that's my report. We meet in September.
Perfect, thank you. We don't have Sand Lake. Scenic Foothills, we now have Roger Shaw representing Scenic Foothills. Hi, Roger, do you have anything to report from Scenic Foothills? Anything going on?
Really, there's basically nothing to report. We're mostly silent during the summer. We have recognized that there will be some changes soon in our executive board because we've had at least one member that's moved out into another district. A couple of other people are stepping down. And so we will be having some elections at our September meeting and probably completely fill our board as well as determine the officers that we'll have for the next year. But other than that, there's not too much to report from Scenic Foothills this time.
Thank you. South Edition.
South Edition normally doesn't meet in July and August, but we did have a special meeting on July 7th. And we invited administration to come and report on the new overlay zone. Daniel Montana Foster and Graham Downey came, and there was much interest in this overlay and relationship with the full mover system. I think the information that was provided was very helpful. I also think it illuminated that there is no consensus in my community council on this zoning proposal. We also have seen a big influx of campers from Davis Park coming into Valley of the Moon and also along the creeks between Valley of the Moon and Westchester. That's all.
Thank you. We don't have South Fork, so we have Spinard.
So we also did not meet in July and August, but in May we passed a joint resolution between Midtown, North Star, and Spinard in support of funding to develop a master plan for Kite Park. And we also voted on our CIP priorities. The number one, again, is pedestrian crossings and traffic calming on Minnesota from International to Northern Lights. And in June, we passed resolutions in support of safe parks and trails and the transit supported corridors. The safe parks and trails was in response to some of the incidents that we are seeing in Spinard as well along our parks and trails, fires and COVID activity. So we had some questions and some asks within that resolution, and about 50% met so far. We put some timelines in it, so hopefully at our September meeting we'll have some updates, and our September meeting is September 3rd.
Thank you. We don't have Taku, Campbell, or Tudor, so Tournament.
Yes, thank you. As with other councils, we did not meet in July or earlier this month. But so our next meeting will be in September. So if you're meeting on September 3rd, we're meeting on September 4th. I haven't flipped the calendar yet. So, however, a real positive thing happened down at Glenary Park Memorial Garden down by the coastal trail. I worked with the Parks Department to get 26 teenagers to do a major work party down there. It had been neglected, lots of overgrown grass and things, and it was just amazing to see that much youth come out and really put in a good solid 2 hours of work. And that was the tip of the iceberg though, because the park has needed a lot of work for a long time. And my husband Dan and I have been going down on a regular basis since then to try and continue the efforts to give it a little bit more beauty, since it's such a high visible area by both locals and visitors. Whenever we're down there, people stop from everywhere and comment on the park and how nice it looks. We got some flowers, you find them. And I'm thinking, oh, if you only knew what it looked like when it first got rehab, would be some far cry from that. But anyway, really positive thing happening. And hope to continue that effort to upgrade it when we can. As far as something that we submitted comments on, just via not even the board, it was really land use, myself and land use chair, John Isaacs, who has joined our meeting by via Zoom. So John, thanks for attending. He's done a massive amount of work this summer, way more than I have, on some issues that are continuing. So we did submit wetland core permit comments on the wetland core permit application by a business called K-Lot. They're wanting to build a pretty large general aviation hangar development. Unfortunately, very, very close to the boundary of the Turnigan residential area down southeast of the gravel strip. So, that's scary. And we are afraid that that will just be the first step in more permit applications for Class A wetlands, Turnigan bog, as it moves forward along the Turnigan boundary. So we're gonna be having to watch that very closely. And also, between John and myself, we have been following the multiple things that the Assembly and the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Planning Department have been putting forth, and including monitoring and participating in the 10-year and review of both the comprehensive plan and the land use plan that the P&Z Commission is doing right now. We've attended those work sessions. And then also, John is participating in a working group with regard to this transit, what you referred to, John, the transit belt overlay. We're very concerned that there's some real issues with that, and the magnitude of where the overlay is and some of our areas in Turnigan as well. So that's about it for Turnigan.
Thank you. We don't have Turnigan Arm, but we do have University area. Bring us out.
We didn't meet for June, July, and August. The first meeting, September 3rd. We have not discussed ISDO. I've sent out emails to people talking about it, trying to get some get the word out to people in our community council, but doesn't seem to be too successful. I guess everyone's out enjoying nice weather. As far as the boundary lines go, supposedly it's gonna hit the assembly here in the next, probably, I'm guessing Q4 2025. So I'm not sure what's gonna happen with our boundaries yet, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna get passed as it is by the assembly. We're gonna lose a portion and gain a portion. Your gain to your area and lose a substantial portion, so it's probably gonna happen that way. A few people know that it's probably gonna hit assembly Q4, but hopefully by then we'll, discuss it at the council meeting. 42nd Avenue, the big construction projects, they're doing about 100 feet a week, so. I guess that's the new norm for construction, Brandon.
Let's look at that.
Well, so Central is gonna get that project. Anyways, the contractor sickle construction. And we're getting our $10 million worked out. So, but it's moving along. They're I think approaching Laurel Street. Not very quickly, but they're approaching Laurel Street. And they've had some difficulties. I'm sure the change orders are flying over there to EM&E, so. But yeah, basically same old. We got some new buildings going up, got a new, I don't know if anyone knows this, but you heard the old, what I call old Ernie Turner. Ernie Turner Center went out to Eagle River. Ernie Turner Center at Elmore and Tudor was taken over by South Central. It was the same operation, same type of operation, being run by South Central. And they got rid of the, they didn't get rid of the, demoed the car wash that was on Tudor Road many years. And the South Central got hold of that property and put in a bigger alcohol rehabilitation facility. So the Ernie Turner facility was a smaller operation. That's now out in Eagle River. This structure is probably 4 or 5 times the size of what was there. So
Okay, thank you. So I guess that was I'm not sure that's quite the introduction to PM&E we wanted to make, but thank you very much for the updates on from councils. We'll move on to education topic. Brandon, tell us what the design criteria manual is and why it's got such a wonderful title.
Your presentation, Brandon. Give me 1 second. It's not there. That's it.
Ariana, you're not letting Midtown present? Whatever.
This week we're only doing Rapid Creek through or this month we're only doing Rapid Creek through University because we do them quarterly. Well, yeah.
Okay,
Excellent. My name is Brandon Telford. I'm with the Project Management and Engineering Department for the municipality. I'm the engineering manager in that department. And among other roles, part of that role is keeping our design criteria and our specifications up to date and current as much as possible. And so last year, we went through a round of updates to our standard specifications for the city. And this year we've kicked off the design criteria manual update. And we've specifically, there's 8 chapters of the design criteria manual. Currently we've targeted 3. We plan to continue the updates kind of as we go along. On the next slide here, got an answer, a bit of an answer to the question of what is the design criteria manual. It's a manual that establishes minimum standards for road, trail, and drainage projects. And those standards are specific to Anchorage's climates, geology, and topography. So it's a compilation of a lot of nationwide and statewide standards and regulations kind of distilled down into a package that's Anchorage specific. And it's intended to be, for the most part, a one-stop shop for the designers. They can go to the design criteria manual, find the standards that they need to adhere to for their road, trail, and drainage project, and sort of apply those. And, if they're doing something that's maybe outside of the typical, then we have to then go to another standard, a reference standard. But if the project is sort of staying within what's typical, the criteria is going to be right there in the design criteria manual. It also fulfills some regulatory obligations. So chapter 2 of the manual specifically is related to storm drain. And we have through the Alaska Pollution Discharge Elimination System program, which is a program administered by the DEC. That's related to the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System for the EPA. Our design criteria manual, chapter 2, lays out the criteria that's required to be followed in order to meet the regulatory requirements for those programs.
Who is required to follow these regulations, the DCM?
So in the case of chapter 2 specifically, it's all development. And that's a regulatory requirement from the DEC. All development follows standards.
Any residential development needs to follow this criteria.
The single family home and duplexes are exempted. So they don't explicitly have to follow them for strictly single family home. Subdivisions do.
Does a triplex and fourplex have to follow them?
Yes. And then the other chapters are primarily targeted at improvements to the neighborhood. Yeah. So sort of the history of the DCM a little bit, it originated in 1974 under the borough. And it was updated in 1988 with the implementation of the municipality. And then the most current update is 2007. So that's the current one that we're under. So it's quite aged and ready for an update. The only exception to that is chapter 2, the drainage chapter. It was updated in 2017 to fulfill a regulatory requirement. So it's the chapter that's most current. And so, like I said, we're undergoing a process to go ahead and update it and bring it up to federal standards. So we have the next slide here. So this is kind of the plan right now. Chapters 3, 7, and 8 are what's available right now today for public comment. And those are the ones we've been working on for the past year or so. And those cover landscaping, public transportation, so that's people mover. And then plans and specifications. The plans and specifications are specific to how municipal projects are delivered, what their bid package looks like when they go out to bid, the drawings that show the road drainage improvements and the specifications that go along with those. Streets, trails, and traffic control are expected to be sort of the next round that will be kicking off as we move through the approval process of the 3 current chapters. With kind of lighting, we're kind of to be determined. This year we were able to fill a position that's been vacant for a very long time. That is a position to manage kind of the street lighting program for the municipality. And so with that position filled, as that position, the person in that position comes up to speed, we'll start to develop a plan for how to tackle that chapter as well. So the process, the design criteria manual was adopted by the assembly as regulation. And the assembly has established kind of a minimum criteria for us to follow in order to get approval for any updates. And the minimum criteria is a public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission and approval by the assembly. And so with those targets in mind, we're going through a rather extensive update process, including in-house project management teams for every chapter that includes individuals from multiple agencies and departments within the municipality, as well as stakeholder groups, industry or technical advisory stakeholder groups. And that gets us to the point where we have public comment drafts that are ready for the public to review and comment on. And that's where we are today with 3 of those drafts. And so we've started a 45-day public comment period. It closes October 10th. We're doing presentations as part of our public outreach to make the public aware that these chapters are available for them to review. And after October 10th, we'll be working on resolving those comments, revising the chapters, and moving on to a public hearing draft that will be submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review.
Can I ask you a question? If a community council wants a presentation, are you guys doing that? Would they just reach out to you?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah. it would be helpful for us if a presentation is requested to know if it's, you know, this presentation, it's kind of the overview, or if you want a presentation on a specific chapter. Because I have consultant support, I have other departments supporting different chapters. I'm not the expert on public transit or landscaping. I have staff and consultants helping me out with those things, so if you want a very detailed presentation on landscaping or public transit, we need to make a note to bring those people along with me. So generally across, going.
We have a presentation on road construction. Not for me.
So sort of some general things across chapters for the update. We're sort of following along with sort of the standard that was set by the Assembly adopting the long range transportation strategy, and their focus on implementing the safe system approach. If we're not familiar with the safe system approach, be really difficult to sort of cover it right now, but it's about making road and transportation systems safer for all users. And the 3 chapters we're currently we've got current drafts on. This isn't a major component of it because it's both going to be kind of a larger component and streets and traffic control. We haven't got there yet, but it's kind of an overarching thing. Another overarching theme is incorporating movement in place, and so typical kind of road classification leads to road design. They use functional classification to kind of decide how to design roads or what criteria will apply to the road. So if a road is classified as a local street, there's local street criteria. If it's classified as a collector street, there's collector street and arterial street and so forth. The movement in place framework also considers the land use that's adjacent to the road. So it increases the options available for the typical sections for these different classifications of road, depending on what the adjacent land use is, what the sort of multimodal demand, pedestrian and bicycle demands are along certain land use, and what's contextually appropriate, given the land use. We're updating the formatting, kind of a minor thing, and then kind of doing some more consistency across the organization of the document. And so some specific things that we're doing with the landscaping chapter, I get back to that movement in place framework. We're kind of defining different kind of landscaping options for different areas within the municipality. So downtown has a very different sort of landscaping feel than Hillside. So we're reflecting that in the landscaping chapter.
Hey, I'm just gonna give you a heads up, we have like 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, well, there's certainly more slides of it. So yeah, updated information is on kind of where landscaping is appropriate, how the right of way is used for snow storage, and what kind of abuse landscape will experience if it's in a snow storage area. And then best practices updated as well. Public transportation. A lot of this is about bus stop location and the layout of bus stops. The actual amenities that exist at a bus stop are actually governed by a different document within people mover. This simply explains if an amenity is being provided at a bus stop, where it goes. So we've updated it based on current maintenance practices and some kind of snow clearing practices. They're trying to optimize those.
Yeah, this is sort of what I'm interested in. I've been looking at the transit supported development and looking at my neighborhood and what we need. A major problem we have is that you can't walk from the business to the bus stop.
Mhm.
So the city has put in a bus stop, but the business hasn't met it part way. So you know, in order to get from the Fred Meyers on Abbott to the bus stop, you either walk in the roadway with turning traffic, it's coming out of the parking lot, you're walking, or you walk through bushes and a snow berm. Often you cloud snow. do your standards include that for what businesses need to do to make their business accessible to pedestrians and the bus stop?
This does not, because it's explicit to what's within the right of way itself.
Okay,
And so those standards would be in Title 21,
okay,
the land use code. Regarding, the pedestrian connection between the building and the right of way.
But it would matter if we were building the road, community was building the road, then we would
No,
be
it
providing
wouldn't.
connections to the
It
bus.
wouldn't matter. It's on private property. As soon as you get private property, the only thing you're required to do is have pedestrian access.
Our sidewalks always in the private property, right?
No,
So the current development standard for Title 21 is that the entrance must be connected to the right of way with a walkway.
Yeah.
right.
So if that Fred Meyer was being developed today under today's standards, they would be required to establish a pedestrian connection from the entrance of the building to the nearest right of way.
is it connected to the bus stop?
No,
Because I think they've met the criteria, but it doesn't go to the bus stop.
doesn't have to go to the bus stop.
Okay.
It only has to go to the, it only has to go to the right.
Okay, so we that might be something we need to change, is make sure the businesses connect. The walkway must go to the bus stop.
So side access.
What do you mean, Jason?
Is that just access? Sorry. Sorry, it was just a clarifying question about whether he's talking about is site access. Is it closer to that?
Yeah, I would agree that that would generally fall under the category of site access.
But to clarify, the document you're describing here is the specifications that the unit has to follow when it's a new project or a new.
When it's a new project, also, with the subdivision going in, the contractor putting the subdivision has to build that road
Yeah.
to these standards.
Yes.
And the
Because
municipality
it's a right of
buys
way,
that land, it basically buys that, owns that when we're done. Right, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so one point I wanted to make in this is, there's some flow charts related to how bus stops are placed within the right of way. One of the changes we're making based on, again, the Assembly's adoption of the, long-range transportation strategy is we're moving away from bus pullouts as being more of a standard and having bus stops in lane instead of in pullouts, to increase sort of the transit operation, the efficiency of the transit operation and focus on kind of transit as a priority within the right of way. Chapter 8, again,
it's a single thing, get rid of pullouts.
pullouts will become less common. And on the new bus development.
So because of the hierarchy, the mobile hierarchy.
So you just have to put a stop on the side of the road.
Stop in the lane, yeah. So
Yeah, traffic will stop that. The consultants reported that does increase safety for all road users.
yeah, and the efficiency with the bus system, the buses find out, have a hard time, particularly at peak hours. Reiterate people, ensuring the flow of traffic once they've gone through the pullout. So plans and specifications, unless you're delivering projects for the municipality using AutoCAD and adhering to our specifications, you may not have much interest in this section. But it's bringing it up to date with to the current practices and current software that we're using today. And so kind of the last slide here, is just reiterating, we have our public comment drafts available, for comment. They're posted online. The public comment period is open through October 10th. After October 10th, we'll be moving towards that public hearing draft and submitting the planning and zoning commission for a public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe a follow-up, depending on the first answer.
Yeah.
Does this apply to state roads?
No, not state-owned roads, AMAS projects that are on municipal roads. That are managed by the DOT, so like Spinard and Fireweed. It would apply there. But on a project, Minnesota or Tudor, that's strictly state-owned, it would not dictate.
So a follow-up, as someone who lives at the corner of Minnesota and Twitter, how do we make it apply to state roads?
We asked nicely. Which I have done, and tentatively the answer is, I think if we can update the DCN. We have a consistent and updated set of standards. DOT mostly builds those rural roads, right? They don't mostly build urban roads. So when it comes to urban roads, there's a chance they could, by reference, adopt our DCN as their guidelines. But they would have to do that and go through their process, and they might disagree with this, but that conversation is happening, so. I asked
And I
nicely.
asked nicely.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm gonna waste a few seconds by asking a question as well. You mentioned when you mentioned public transport, you mentioned people mover. I just want to check, it's not just people mover, it covers the whole municipality, not just the whole people mover, correct? Or is it really just about that part of the system?
It's a good question. I believe it is. I don't explicitly know the answer to that.
If you get the answer, you can send it to me and I can forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When are you gonna start the next chapters, by the way?
It depends on how this one process proceeds. If we get a whole lot of public comments and have to do a whole lot of work updating these chapters, it's gonna kind of delay kind of starting the next phase. We also have a budgetary ask to kind of offset the impacts of the costs that we're incurring as a department. And it remains to be seen kind of where that's gonna land. So those things will kind of play a role in how that rolls out.
Thank you very much. We're a few minutes behind, but I think there's some overlap between that and TISDO. So let's move on to the transit supported development overlay project. You should say a few words.
Yeah, I'm
about
just gonna introduce,
Yes.
so, some background, just in case you haven't been following. Graham came to me and said, we wanna do more civic engagement. And we want to do it quickly. Can we figure out something that includes the community councils? And we came up with the lottery as a way to bring people into the room who are, allow people into the room or the opportunity to come into the room who may not normally get picked. Because a lot of times in the working groups and the focus groups and all of those like things, people get kind of handpicked from the municipality. And we wanted to say, hey, other community council members may be interested, maybe have the time. What if we just open it up to the public? And this was kind of a trial. And so part of this, I asked Graham to come and talk today, because I wanted to talk, if people want to talk about, the process of TISDO, that is the purpose for this conversation. If you want to talk about the content of TISDO, we're going to be doing that at the local lens, which is September 2nd. I've already posted about that. I will be doing more posting about that. But that is where they'll do a full presentation on TISDO, all the updates that they've done so far, and be open for questions. And you can always submit comments and Graham will go through that. But this is really to have a conversation here as people who are civically engaged. What is the process? How do you feel about it? What is the feedback you're getting, and have space for that conversation in this room? So.
Yeah.
Is that cover everything?
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I've met many of you, if not all. It's not my first time in this room. It's nice to be back with you. I'm Graham Downey. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff for the Mayor. I primarily focus on housing and transportation, so I get to work with Brennan a bunch on. I'm really excited about the DCM stuff, and I'm glad you're asking exactly the right question. I think the next phase where we'll get to streets and switches will be the really critical one, where a lot of our questions about TISDO, a lot of questions about how we manage the road, aren't answered in that document. So excited to get there. For those of you who aren't tracking as closely, the TISDO, the Transit Supportive Development Overlay, which is a mouthful, is intended to increase density where our plans have called for it. So in 2020 and in the 2040 plans, transit supportive corridors were identified as places where it might be suitable to build more housing in Anchorage. And in those plans, they show all sorts of wonderful things like apartment buildings and 5/1 style development where you have retail on the first floor and 5 stories of residential on top of it. It shows that as having a variety of housing types, so not just big apartment buildings, but also smaller starter homes. And all of that meant to support transit. And the federal, when you look at the federal transit guidance, which Jason can tell you much more about this than I can, they generally recommend that to support adequate bus service, you need about 30 people per acre at least. That means you need to have enough people per acre to have the riders and have the tax base to support the transit. We don't really have that in very many places in Anchorage, and so that means that our bus tends to lose money in a really significant way. Of course, transit's always going to be subsidized to some degree, but if you can get that critical ridership, you can really sustain frequent, reliable, accessible transit service. So that's one of our motivations in this ordinance is if we can get folks to live near transit, and we can have better and improved transit service. One example of that is Spinard Road. where people movers already jumped ahead to 15-minute headways. We don't really have the ridership actually to support that level of frequency. So if we can't get more housing on Spinard Road in that neighborhood, then we're probably gonna have to come back and reduce bus service in the near future. So that's one of the goals. Other goals that we've heard about, walkability, so having a greater degree of density, having houses closer together, and potentially having mixed uses would encourage people to walk within their neighborhood. Another motivation is affordability. In recent years, we haven't been building housing, and the cost of housing has increased dramatically. Rent's been increasing as much as 15% year over year. I think the last number I saw, the average house in Anchorage cost over $500,000. Just really dramatic inflation in the cost of housing, and one of the big drivers of that is a lack of supply of housing. When you look at the numbers for where we're building housing, we're building almost all of our new housing on the suburban edges of town, right into our park, in deep sort of South Anchorage, the sort of greenfield development at the edges of the town. That's really expensive for the taxpayer because that's new roads, new sewers, infrastructure, and it's sprawl, and it's getting into some of what makes Anchorage special, right, into our natural spaces. So in order to encourage infill development, where we're only building about 10% of our housing, we need to change the rules to allow more housing to be built. That said, within that broad paradigm, lots of policy levers to pull, lots of different choices to make. So we're really excited to get community feedback on what the right levers are to pull to increase flexibility to build more housing. So anyway, I know we talked.
Can you talk about the process, how we got here?
Yes, just wanted to lay sort of ground with some motivation. So about a year ago, Jason and some others, including now Assemblymember Aaron Baldwin-Day, came to the planning department as well as to Assembly members Stolt and Martinez and said, hey, this home initiative was an okay idea, but what we hear from people is that they want actually more change in the core of the city. So they brought this TISDO proposal to those Assembly members, and those Assembly members were really excited about it. We immediately ran into a bunch of roadblocks because it turns out that even though the plans had called for an overlay, Title 21 didn't actually establish a procedure for creating an overlay. So we first had to go through the process of passing an ordinance that clarified how the municipality can do rezones, which is functionally what an overlay is. That ordinance passed a couple months ago, and then we were able to dig more deeply into the TISDO ordinance. I think during that time, there's presentations here at the FCC, Jason and others.
In December.
Jason and others made a bunch of presentations and got letters of support from a number of community councils. If Sarah, you maybe helped write one. Lizzie maybe also, yeah. Anyway, and at the same time, what was I gonna say? Having at the same time. Anyway, got lots of feedback and thoughts about the general concept of the TISDO. In July, the Planning and Zoning Commission had their first meeting on the actual text of the TISDO. They heard a presentation from the planning department and took public feedback. Myself and the planning department asked that planning and zoning continue that hearing, which they typically don't do, to September, in order to give the community more time to provide feedback. I think we've since heard that, especially given that some councils don't meet in the summer, that isn't enough time. So I think we'll likely go in September and ask them to continue again to at least October. So the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on the TISDO will be on September 8th. And again, we're gonna ask, it's their decision, they're an independent board, so it's their decision, but I'm gonna ask, and I think they'll likely agree to continue that to one of the meetings in October to give folks more specific. So there's an opportunity to provide public comment on the website, which I will send the link.
Yes, I have it, and I'll share it on screen really quick.
Great. There's a chance to provide comment. There's a chance to request that we come and do a dedicated meeting on the substance of that at your community council. As well as like just a ton of information about the substance, as well as the ordinance, notes from the focus group that the FCC helped convene, and the map that shows where the TISDO applies. After it goes to planning and zoning, so assuming planning and zoning will make some recommendation probably in October, usually takes 4 to 6 weeks for an ordinance to go from planning and zoning to get introduced at the assembly. So expect the ordinance would be introduced in the assembly probably in November sometime, meaning it would come up for a vote and a public hearing at the assembly either in late November or more likely early December. So it's probably not gonna become a law anytime sooner than late November, early December. So lots of time to have your voice heard at the Planning and Zoning Commission level, at the assembly level, by emailing or calling me, by letting Ari know, and Ari will let me know what you think.
Go direct to grant.
Lots, yeah, that's better.
We're planning.
So lots of opportunities, and we have, already mentioned we have the FCC local lens.
Yeah.
We're also hoping to do an open house. The planning department will probably do some open house in late September, early October. Next week, I'll be at Rogers Park Community Council on Monday, digging in with them. We've had a lovely meeting with South Edition, thanks to John. I'm happy to come back as the ordinance has been evolving in response to community feedback. Kathy and John invited us to turn again.
Well, and I have a question if I may.
Sure.
John happened to testify at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting in July.
Yeah.
And now you're saying you're getting more input, it's evolving, and yet if the PNC Commission just continued their hearing into September and maybe even October, that doesn't give somebody like John or others who testify the opportunity to testify on an amended version of that first.
Yeah.
Hearing, so how do you reconcile that?
Yeah, we're gonna talk to the chair about that of planning and zoning. Typically, the way it works in the assembly is when there's an S version, you're able to testify to the differences in the S version. So given that there will be a new, potentially updated version at planning and zoning, I think it would be, John could testify to the differences and how he feels or how Turnigan feels about the changes in the ordinance.
You could also have someone else testify on behalf of Turnigan.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is content or process.
Yeah.
How does this talk to all of the other plans?
Like
So-
which ones?
Your neighborhood plans, your, like, for example, the Spinner Corridor plan, or the upcoming Midtown District plan, like, how does this interact with that? And not compete?
Yeah.
I think there's more process-wise than context. So,
Yeah.
like,
Well, neighborhood plans typically become a part of the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
I think neighborhood plans are much bigger picture than something like this. This is more specific design sections for stuff as opposed to the bigger picture with like the overall land use of the area.
Except this usurps. So.
This will usurp
This
zoning.
usurps all zoning categories, right?
Well, it changes the zoning, yeah, and the plans do not directly change the zoning, so.
Yeah.
When the plan said, for example, the 2040 plan said we should have a transit supported corridor, and the map looked very similar to this one, except that this one includes opportunity zones and a little bit more of the transit paths in East Anchorage. So when the plan said this should be a TISDO, it didn't make any changes to Title 21. The planning document didn't directly change the zoning code. So our proposal, we believe that this ordinance is implementing the 2040 plan. There are also, I think procedurally, there are two ordinances that move together. One is a comprehensive plan amendment, and one is the zoning plan changes. The comprehensive plan amendment has to go first, but they can travel together.
Okay, I didn't actually read the one for Spinner, which is
Okay.
why, yeah.
So, but I think that would be valuable feedback to hear, like, hey, the Spinner Corridor plan says we're expecting this style development on these roads, and the TISDO does or doesn't achieve those goals.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other thing, your zoning districts come down from the 2040. So you have areas all colored in blue and purple and red and pink and yellow, and those all come down to the different, like, okay, in these areas you do these zoning districts. And then this will kind of almost bump some of that.
And absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, ignore what 2040 plan lined down as far as where zoning districts are.
Well, 2040 called out transport this transit supported corridors has been there for a long time.
Yeah.
This first time.
So.
Well, right, this
Yeah.
first time.
Well, I don't know, I think I disagree. If you look at the 2040 plan, and it does have the colors, and again, that's just the plan, so it didn't actually change any zone. And you can see the transit overlay on that very same map.
It's not the same overlay, this has been expanded from a quarter mile to a half mile.
No, actually, we were wrong, this is a quarter mile on.
This
both
is
sides.
a quarter.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
with some exceptions, with the opportunity zones, being the most notable exception.
We'll have to look at that more closely.
Yeah.
I appreciate the question.
Yeah,
Could you explain the relationship between the tax incentive area map and the Tisdale map? And are they connected? Is there a relation? What is the relationship between those?
that's a great question, yeah. This purple map is the tax incentive bonus area map that already exists in law. So a few months ago, the assembly passed an ordinance that establishes a tax incentive for building multifamily housing of at least 8 units, and you can get additional years of tax abatement if you're in this bonus area. So you can get the tax incentive anywhere in the bowl, and one bonus, I think gives you 3 or 5 extra years of tax abatement, is being in this purple area. So for sort of regulatory and administrative simplicity, we thought we would try to use the same map, since the tax abatement incentive map was largely drawn based on Tisdale plus opportunity zones, Midtown and downtown.
So in 2019, the assembly passed AO 2019-12, which was a tax incentive for housing in the central business district downtown.
Right.
So would we expect that type of outcome, would we expect that type of outcome in the rest of Anchorage?
What type of outcome?
The tax incentive, there are developments that have taken advantage of that tax incentive in the central business district. One is the Edge, for instance. It's a collection, it's a development of townhouses above the railroad down there. And if you look at Zillow, they're for sale, and it goes tax abatement for the next 12 years. Those start at $690,000. Then we have the Debenham building, block 96, and that has, I understand, tax abatement associated with that. We also have the Elizabeth Place downtown, which got generous support from the municipality by getting the land for free. So will this, most of those developments are marketed as luxury developments, luxury housing. Would we expect something different with this new tax incentive?
I think we are getting a little bit into the substance, but I think it's okay just to get a little bit there. I think there is a philosophy that motivates me, and when I'm thinking about housing, and I think is a little bit hard to communicate, is that what we knew from the last 20 years of the lack of multifamily housing, except for Seahawk getting built and a few projects downtown, just no multifamily housing is getting built, is that even at those luxury sounding prices, it still didn't make sense for a developer to build a multifamily housing unit. And so the tax incentive is sort of the analysis that AgUVec helped the municipality do, is close that financing gap so that you could charge market rents and get the tax incentive, and then it went in the black so you would actually build it. And I think we're sometimes Seahawk, who's the only builder of affordable housing primarily in Anchorage, Seahawk will tell us that people treat them Cook Inlet Housing Authority. Thank you for the yes. We'll try to avoid acronyms. Seahawk says that people treat them like a floor. That what they're doing is the bare minimum that the community expects from new housing developers. That it has to be beautiful and permanently affordable and located exactly where the community wants it. And it goes through a very long community involved process to get built. And Seahawk says we should probably actually think of them as the ceiling. That's the most that we can expect from a brand new housing development, because they're so heavily subsidized, right? Both by the federal government and also locally. So if we want to have unsubsidized housing construction, then it is probably going to look expensive at first. It's not immediately going to be affordable. But the effect is, by building that new housing, that means, like me, a new lawyer moving to town in a 2-income household doesn't live in the dingy duplex. we move into the new fancy housing downtown, and our friends who are working at the bike shop get to move into the dingy duplex. So I think we're sort of thinking of this, yes, the sticker shock, the price is gonna be high on that new housing that gets built, but the ultimate effect on housing supply means that we're increasing affordability throughout the market.
So the other thing that always developments seem to
Just
have
don't
in
worry,
common
you're 5 minutes.
is
Thank
they
you.
are marketing to people who need indoor heated parking for their vehicles.
Yeah.
And so if we're using tax incentives to market to people who need indoor heated parking, how is that going to help our ridership?
Excellent. Yeah, I guess, I think the idea is that we need a certain amount of, we need to build more housing in Anchorage. And I don't think all of the new developments are gonna have luxury heated housing. I mean, luxury heated.
So maybe we
car
can
housing.
tax abatements to developers who don't provide parking.
Well, that was part of that.
Okay, before we get.
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
gonna- Not bad ideas, if you wanna have the conversation.
Yes, thank you.
But I do wanna leave space for process questions, because that was quite a bit of the feedback.
So I actually have a process question. First of all, I take your point about the movement across, if people are buying them to live in as opposed to second homes.
Sure, and we know good with.
Good with different, sure,
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, I want to go back to the process side, because I think what I'm finding really interesting about this process is typically what we see. The community, you get engaged, the public gets engaged, even community councils get engaged when something is at the very end of the process. When it's in front of P and Z, when it's in front of the assembly. And honestly, it's too late to make any substantive changes at that point. This process has been interesting to observe and to edit dabble in a little bit, because we're getting this opportunity to at least, perhaps not redirect the ship, but at least provide some input before we get to that final step. And I'm just interested in, what you're taking from this and how, this might affect what happens with the next large process.
I think thanks for saying that, because I think, the home initiative, it just happened. And I think in part the TISDO was a reaction to that and trying to do things differently. But I think when we brought the TISDO out, I think a lot of folks had a little bit of flashback to point. And they're like, oh no, the assembly's forcing this zoning change on our neighborhood, and they're not gonna listen to us, and we're gonna have to yell and scream to make them pay attention to us. And I hope that we're doing things a little differently, but that history is so recent that I can absolutely understand why people had a little bit of reaction, fear about this ordinance, that, oh my God, you're gonna do this to us. When actually, we've already got 3 versions of change based on community feedback, both that we heard in the listening sessions, but also that have been coming in via emails and comments. So I think we are doing something a little different, and I think, how we communicate that probably could do better of saying like, hey, this isn't a fully fleshed out idea. It's not a rough draft, like we put a lot of thought into it, but the feedback is really welcoming. I think maybe the site access working group that some of you, John, participated in, Brandon also helped participate in sometimes,
John Isaacs is.
and John Isaacs is online, was potentially a little more successful. And I think, the TISDO idea coming from Jason and others in the community. We saw sort of that grassroots support for it. I think if I was gonna do it over again, I think we would have maybe convened a working group earlier, and I think the focus group was a great way to get some feedback from some people.
The cart was running.
Yeah.
Still bring it in.
But I think I would probably rather, next time I think we have a big zoning change, I think we need to start a working group before we have a draft.
So I think comparing site access with TISDO is interesting. Site access, that was the selected pit.
Yeah, that's true.
And there was at least an attempt to have a little bit more of a broader cast for TISDO. Whether it worked or not, maybe it didn't work, but there was at least an attempt to do that.
That's a good point. I mean, the site access working group was,
How's it compare?
yeah, 75% developer probably, or maybe I would say actually 30% developer, 30% staff. I don't know, the numbers are not adding up. I don't know, John, if you want to correct, but it was much more heavily weighted in favor of developers. I think sometimes John had to be the voice for community, which you were an admirable advocate for.
How did you pick, like, the community members were like handpicked by the mayor's office or assembly members, right? Versus like you didn't have like an open call to participate.
I think, we asked South Edition and Turnagain and some of the other neighborhoods that were in that historic alley access type neighborhood.
Well, there was an overlay district, neighborhood overlay district. Or neighborhood overlay, excuse me. And that's where the site access kind of came to fruition. The whole
Right.
thing got postponed. That map, they were enforcing it before they had the map ready. So it basically involved, these older neighborhoods. And it kind of burned us on a couple projects. But the problem was, this map wasn't actually available when we ordered it. That was a fundamental flaw right there. That
Right.
map should have been out well before that.
But I think what I'm trying to get at is that what we did differently with Tisdo in comparison to site access is an open call. To
Right.
say anyone's allowed to participate, and whether you are like coming in pro this ordinance or against, or you don't know yet, like you were allowed to participate, rather than seeing these like hand-picked people, or like sometimes what happens at the FC, people reach out to us and they say, can you make a recommendation? And I don't think that that's the FCC's place to say, here are the people that you should talk to be part of collaborations. And I'm excited as part of this for us to take feedback from all of the different collaborations that do happen and all the conversations that do happen and see what works. And then next time something like this comes around, be like, okay, what did we learn? How do we do this better? Or what can we try differently? And just like accepting that some of this is a little experimental, but moving in a good direction. That was
Yeah.
For the, like, in the FCC.
Right, because the focus group that we just did was what a dozen people and almost all, I think we had one or two developers and almost everyone else was from the community. I don't know, does that seem fair, Lucy?
Look, no, sorry, what's the thing?
Then the focus group was primarily community voices with.
Yes, it was,
We
we
ended up
kind of
with-
wanted more, we're kind of going, we actually need to know what the developers think on this, because we talk about what we want, and, will this work for the developers?
Right.
Yeah,
And they actually go with it.
right, yeah.
Yeah,
Quick question, process quotes on it. As far as when this would be implemented, is the current version that there would be no requirement for a developer to notify community councils and or adjacent properties?
that's right, yeah, so.
And so if you have two
Yeah.
single family homes. And then one of the single family homes, just adjacent to, wants to go ahead and build that 7-story. Multi-unit facility because they can with this overlay, even though it's not even close to being zoned that, it's zoned R1. And then you have another R1 single family and then another 7-story and then 2 more 7 stories. I mean, do we care what in the end result, what we may get that would be so? Not really what we classically refer to as compatibility in neighborhoods.
Yeah, that does sound like a substantive, which is a fair and
But
hurt
it's
substantive.
process in
I
terms
will-
of public notice.
I will say, I think what the process piece you're right is, if the Tisdo was passed, it would take immediate effect. So the Tisdo would become an option for a property owner, if you lived in the Tisdo, then you could use the Tisdo zoning. Where it says, there's something in it that says opt-in, and that's really about, for folks who have existing sort of expansive property rights, like if you have a B3 lot. If the Tisdo is more restrictive than the B3, you're not gonna lose any property rights. But if you live in the Tisdo and you're currently R1 or R2 or R3, you're gonna be able to immediately use the Tisdo standards. You're not gonna have to ask your neighbor's permission before you.
Not permission, I'm talking about public notice of least and the hearing.
Right. Yeah,
And
we're
that's
moving
all-
more
that's all
towards.
it's on.
Yeah.
That element of.
I will say
community
the one,
Council input and neighborhood input
Yeah.
and it's just whitewash.
We are at
So-
time.
well, but the one, correction, is we're not allowing 7-story buildings anywhere, and we have heard the concerns about heights, and currently there's a pier.
You can see picture, it's 50 up to 7 stories. So
75 feet, which is actually more like 6 stories.
Okay,
And that would only be on the major roads on the collectors. So in response to the concerns we've heard about heights, we've already made one change, which is 75 feet on the big roads, 55 feet on the medium roads, the collectors, and 48 feet, which is 4 stories on the local roads. And I think continued feedback about concerns about heights are very welcome. The goal is not to have random apartment buildings in the neighborhood.
and parking.
So so we can use this as an ad to advertise the local lens on September the 2nd. Where we absolutely can get into the details here. What I want to do is to bring this back around to process. So the attempt this time is to try and bring community voices a little bit earlier into the process. It's still got to P and Z, but there's at least the pause has provided this opportunity for people up to the page. And this is sort of part of, I think, a broader discussion, which actually leads directly to our next topic.
It's like we planned this.
Almost like we planned. So thank you very much, Greg.
Thank you, Grant.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
And thank you, Grant.
So we're just gonna move on to the Better Public Meetings project.
Okay, and this is my ask to you guys. I've been talking about better public meetings on and off with maybe individuals of you at various points. And I'm excited to, hey, you guys, it's super distracting for me. I'm so sorry. You can, if you want.
Talk quite.
Thanks, guys. I'm sorry, I can't, multiple voices, I like can't myself. Okay, so Better Public Meetings is a project that I've been working since April to bring to Anchorage. And I'm really excited to bring it to you guys here in a formal setting and then be able to talk about like, how does this involve community councils? And so this project is a partnership with a national organization called the National Civic League. They actually have recognized Anchorage like 3 times as one of like cities, All-American City League of Cities. And one of their offshoots of their organization is Democracy Innovation. And then we're also partnering with the American Arbitration Association Foundation, which is funding this project, and Perfect City. And then we're partnering locally with the YWCA as well around with a lot of other organizations. So what am I talking about? What are all these things? The Better Public Meetings Project, it's Anchorage is one of 2 cities nationwide selected to participate in the Better Public Meetings Project in partnership with the National Civic League Center for Democracy Innovation and Arts-Based Initiative Perfect City. This project aims to improve how public meetings are experienced by community members, elected officials, and municipal staff. This is a fully funded project. It's around, I would estimate, $100,000 of funding that has that is essentially approved and we're going towards this project in regards to national facilitation support, and it's a year-long project. And so what this has to do with TISTO is that bad public meetings damage public trust, they discourage participation, and they reduce the quality of local decision-making. I know in the year and some change that I've been here with this organization, a lot of what I've heard is that you guys don't feel heard. You guys come to meetings at the assembly and you're facing a countdown clock, and that's intimidating. And you have the assembly members just like staring at you, and you're like, we have ideas and we want to help facilitate them, but there's no space for that to occur. There's no mechanism for that to occur. And the amazing thing about this project is that that is exactly what National Civic League is looking at. And the history of how I got here is I was watching one of their work session or one of their webinars on this project. They had done something similar in 3 pilot cities like a year ago. And I was watching this and I reached out to them and said hey, I'm kind of interested in some of the stuff you guys are doing. And they were like, what are community councils? And I was like, ha, let me tell you. And they
5 hours later.
And they were really excited about what community councils were. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But essentially, this project is an answer to a lot of the questions we've been asking. How do we have better meetings? How do we have more involvement? Better public meetings increase community satisfaction, improve transparency, and create space for more voices to be heard. By testing new tools, gathering community input, and exploring creative approaches, this project helps Anchorage reimagine how local democracy can work for everyone. And so the problem with the 3-minute testimony, the problem with public meetings as they're currently set up is that you only have 3 minutes to speak. They reduce public trust in government and make it harder to make decisions. They reduce public trust in government. Oh, that's said it twice. And they increase inequities. People most affected are often not present in the room. And I think you guys feel that, right? You're like, nobody comes to my meetings and I want them to be there. And how do we help people show up for these meetings? How do we share with them that these projects are really important? So this project is a multi-step process. Like I said, it's about a year long from when we kick it off. The first part is about 3 months of civic infrastructure scan, which is a multi-step process. So they do informal interviews with community members. There is going to be a citywide survey where we ask a lot of questions about when people engage, how do they engage? And I know that when certain communities who are not community councils want to show up, they have levers that they can pull. And my question is, what are those levers and how do we educate those people about community councils? How do we get to the people who don't know what levers to pull? What education are we missing to get more civic engagement in our city? And so there's a third part to that, which is the scorecard, which I'll go into in a little bit. And so then the National Civic League will look at all this research and come back and do community presentations and conversations and hold a visioning exercise. And then they'll work in partnership with the Assembly through an iterative process to create and to present and create ideas about how we can reimagine civic engagement, how we can improve public testimony in Anchorage. And then the most important part of this is that it's not just a report. The ask to the Assembly is have to try something. Like one of the recommendations we want to see actually happen. And that's a major part of this because a lot of times these conversations happen and then it's a report and it's go on a shelf and you don't get to see it anymore and you don't know if it does anything. And we want to see them try something new. We want to see them be creative. And I know that there's ways that they can do it. The thing that like really grabbed my attention was in Boulder, Colorado, their city council has work sessions and they were able to tool their work session to be a collaborative process that included members of the public, because in work sessions, even here, we allow public testimony. It's at the discretion of the chair. And so there's no reason why there couldn't be conversation that occurs in a work session. And I was like, amazed, mind blown. How do we get there? Like, how do I bring that to Anchorage? And so this is kind of another breakdown of some of the parts of this project, which is the civic infrastructure scan, a highly publicized survey that will ask the community what they need, and interviews with community members, leaders, and organizers to understand what's working and what's not when it comes to participation in public meetings. The scorecard is a simple digital tool that is deployed in Assembly meetings and hopefully community council meetings to let the public share their feedback about their experience at the Assembly and the meeting and council meetings. Scorecards are anonymous and will help shape future improvements. There's a secondary part to this that's special to Anchorage that they haven't done before, and I'm super excited about it, which is participatory performances, working with Perfect City. They're gonna hold 1 to 2 events where attendees will hear real words from Anchorage meetings brought to life on stage. The idea is that we're using art to engage community members and what civic engagement could look like for them and to try and tap into people in a creative way. And then based on community feedback, the National Civic League will recommend specific improvements to test out. And so why Anchorage? Like what made it so easy to pitch them? Well, one, I called them like every 2 weeks. And it's like, hi. I did a work session to present this at the Assembly and Felix was like, how did you do this? And I was like, I was really annoying. And so why Anchorage? Well, for 50 years of the municipality is 50 years of the community councils. And I don't think the Assembly always wants to hear that, but the way community councils are embedded in charter and in code means that they can't just say with the political administration, bye, we don't like you anymore. And that is so unique for Anchorage. That doesn't exist in almost any city. In other cities, you know, they can vote and say like, you know what, we're done with this. And they can't do that with us. And that is incredibly useful to keeping the civic life of this city operational and engaged in everything. Additionally, Anchorage is super partnered, right? Everyone kind of knows everybody, and even for like a larger size city, it was not hard for me to reach out to people and be like, hey, what do you think? Every organization I've talked to is like, we don't have enough engagement, we want better engagement. How do we support this? Obviously, the community council system, like I talked about. And then another thing is, I was talking with one of the members from MCL, and we don't have, you know, we're not Boston. We don't have decades of code that we're like working through the centuries, right? Of getting through. We're a kind of a young city, and they were telling me that younger cities actually are at the cutting edge of getting better education in regards to civic engagement, better engagement in general, because they're willing to try new things. So this like history of civic engagement partnered with us not having like centuries of code holding us back means that we're in this perfect prime place to be an American city that can really try something new. I mean, I will say, I think we're like one of the largest cities they'll have worked with on this project for sure. Some of the partners that I've talked to, and work is everybody. When I'm telling you, I want this survey to go out to everybody. I want all of you in this room to email every single person on your email list and be like, hi, I need you to take this survey. The more people who participate, the better. Okay, so what did we ask the assembly for? And this is coming together through a resolution that we're asking them to pass. Erin Baldwin Day is sponsoring this resolution. And I believe there's a couple other assembly members who will sign on, but we have asked them to identify 2 assembly champions. We are asking them to deploy the scorecard in their meetings, which means people are able to provide feedback of what they experienced during while attending assembly meetings. We're asking them to give consideration to the recommendations and innovations that emerge from this process. And we're asking them to engage collaboratively, and that means come to meetings, be part of the research, be willing to try things, think creatively, think collaboratively. And so how does this relate to community councils? This is my ask as part of this to you guys. 1, share better public meetings with your membership. Help me get out the word to everybody. Share it in your personal lives if you're willing. Share it at work, all of the things, right? Because as you guys know, not enough people come to meet community councils. And this is a way for us to start that little step into like, hey, you know, here's a survey. They're just trying to get as many people to fill it out as possible. And then they're like, oh, what's this thing about? And you're like, oh, community councils, let me tell you what I do.
And 5 hours.
5 hours later. And then the second part is actively deploying the utilization of the civic engagement scorecard. And before I go on, let me explain kind of like what I'm talking about when I talk about the scorecard. Okay. The scorecard will be at your meetings and at assembly meetings, and we would have different scorecards, but community councils would kind of all have one. And we call it like a small Yelp review of your meeting. Literally, happy face, medium face, rowdy face, right? And then they would like drop down, pick which community council they attended, and then there's some basics. Is this your first time attending? How did you participate? How did you hear about the meeting? And then what was good about the meeting and what could have been better? And I think a lot of you guys also ask me like, why aren't people coming, or like, what's not working, or how do we get more people? This is going to be some real data that you can get from people who attend your meeting, both residents, regular attendees, first timers who maybe never come back. This could be a chance to really get some data on like what's working and what isn't working in your community council. And the real ask here for you is to put a QR code next to your sign-in sheet, post it on your Zoom link, you know, like the ask from you is just to like put the scorecard out there and then get the feedback. It's really not that big of a lift, I would say. Okay.
Use pencil.
That's not true, you're on Zoom, we got you, don't talk to me about that, don't.
I
take
like
my
that
word
word
for it.
paper as well.
That's-
I really do.
You're also on Zoom.
We,
No, but no.
I'm-
gotta deal with all this.
Well, that's the point, right? So they're gonna take all this data and they're gonna make recommendations for changes. And you guys will also get some of those recommendations, things that can be done better, both in the assembly chambers and in the community council like rooms. And I was specific with them and was like, I wanna be able to see some of that data I wanna see that data by council, because all of you are different and all of you have your unique positives and negatives. And we gotta be able to break that down. The idea being that like this data would be collected over 3 months, but we could move the scorecards up for longer. And so they could be like a whole year of attendees and getting that kind of information and getting a real kind of feedback. And you're going to get people who say like, I hated this meeting, it didn't let me talk, it didn't believe in me or whatever. But like, I think you're gonna get a general idea, right? Of like how people feel in a broader sense. And you're always gonna have your naysayers, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do the research, especially when we have a free 99 grant that's willing to do the data for us, like, and then the other ask for community councils is to attend the collaboration meetings, attend, share your recommendations, share your experiences, all the things that you guys have told me about why assembly meetings don't work for you, they don't work for other people as well. And so you guys sharing that stuff in these meetings and through the survey in other spaces as this year progresses is gonna be so incredibly helpful, because you guys are essentially the experts in civic engagement in the city, especially you in this room know it better than anybody else, which levers to pull. And so the experiences you are having are like tenfold for somebody who has like no idea who the mayor is, right? How do they approach government? I have no idea who my assembly member is. What do I do? Because I have a problem. And you guys are also used to talking to those people. And then engaging collaboratively. Okay. The scorecards just a little bit. The attendees invited to share feedback at community council meetings. The length of the scorecard will be minimum 4 months, but the idea being that we would love to leave this open longer because more data is better. The data will also be used by the National Civic League and then generally summarized and provided to the councils. And what I need from you guys, right? Share the link on meeting agendas and Zoom chats, post QR codes at in-person sign-in tables, and we can support that, right? Like if you guys need that kind of, whatever you need, this is where we come in to like help with getting it out there. Oh, my little line broke, but imagine this is a squiggly line.
It's really.
An anti-squiggly line to me. But essentially this is a 12-month experience, right? We start with research and initial engagement from September to December. We move into strategy piloting and recommendations from January to April, and then implementation and refinement from May to August. And I think if you look at your actual packet, you can see my squiggly line move appropriately. So this is kind of that timeline. And so people are talking about civic engagement in a way that I've never heard in this city before. There's so many things going on, so much percolating about people wanting engagement, and this opportunity for us to really catalyze on that movement and use a free grant to get a bunch of information and to educate people on community councils to like try and drive attendance to learn how we can be better and what's really working for us. This is an amazing opportunity for us. And so my hope is that you guys will support and kind of try to help me show up as the councils in this. Yeah, that is my presentation. Do you have questions? This is.
I'll ask the first question. So, if community council wants to engage in this, you just contact you. I mean, it's not automatic that everyone would. We're not going to create forms.
Okay, so
automatically.
the
There has to be a level of buy-in.
The survey will, or the scorecard will automatically list all the community councils. However, telling the people who attend your meetings that they can fill out the scorecard, that's where like you would have to help me help you, right? And so yeah, help me. And I'm gonna reach out to all the chairs who aren't in this room, and I'm gonna have more conversations with people. And I think I've talked myself to death about this topic, so many meetings. But I will talk to as many people about this project as I can, because I'm so incredibly excited about it. And for us to get this opportunity is very unique. I will say that.
So Ari, this is Pam. If I could ask a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Two, wondering if this is starting, we have the availability to utilize this QR in September. Is that what I'm seeing? And the second part is anywhere in here for a better meeting, is there anything in here for directions or training for testifiers? Thank you.
To answer your first question, so what we're waiting on right now, the kind of like piece that will punch this grant for us is on a resolution that I gave to the assembly in like July. And have been waiting for it to go. It was supposed to go on the last agenda, and then there was literally the legal person went out of town, and so everything fell apart. So it's supposed to be in this packet, but I don't know if you noticed, it wasn't on Wednesday. So we're waiting for this resolution to pass. That is the clinch that essentially gives National Civic League the like, we're good to go. Because for them, they want to work with the elected body who can make decisions. That's like the primary goal. And they are kind of increasing the scope a little bit, because Anchorage is unique with community councils to include all of, and also I was like, hi, this is my project. They're including councils in this. So my hope is that we are kicking this off the first week of September. However, I won't know till next Tuesday, because the resolution has to pass before they let me open any surveys.
We will know on Friday if the resolution's in front of us.
Yeah,
And we will
if
know
it's
on
not,
Tuesday if it passes.
I'm gonna have problems. Your second question was training for testifying. That is not part of this project, but I definitely would love to have a side convo with you about hosting a workshop or something about testifying. And I'm definitely not the best person in this room to talk about testifying, but I know other people who are, and so I would love to do a separate workshop on testifying, essentially. But I have some like general ideas that I can think of.
Jason testified.
Kathleen, I think you have the.
So my question is, I don't like QR codes, my phone won't handle them. Are you also going to have a website link that you can have as well, if not paper?
Yes, I think, and I haven't sorted all the details out, the larger infrastructure survey, we would have a website and we will have links for that. And when the assembly asked me like where I would put it, I was like, I would put it on every bus if I could afford it. Like it would be everywhere. So that will just be a general link, and I'll be putting it in the newsletter. The scans, you know, with your guys' permission, we can put them on the website. We can include the link in the agenda. So if somebody's like touching it digitally, then the link would be there. I can help with all of that so that there's other ways than the QR code to get it to people, because I think we can do a lot of different things.
This is kind of overwhelming, to be honest.
Fair enough.
But I wanted to go back and when you say, you know, we're progressing and this is gonna open up a whole new way for us to communicate, manage assembly and, you know, find the zoning commissioners, et cetera. We used to have that, without all the fancy stuff. We used to have that. We used to be able to go up in front of a microphone and testify on personally or on behalf of the council. And assembly members and planning and zoning commission members and planning, they would actually listen and actually go, you know what? I'm going to move to amend based on that testimony that night, etc. You don't see that at all anymore. They have to have their amendments pretty much figured out ahead of time.
Wrapped up.
And I would say based on my personal experience in the last couple of years, certainly last year or so, I mean, there are no questions after you testify. There's no movement on the assembly, or very, very rarely movement on the assembly to amend based on testimony that night. So my new thing is saying, if you're in front of the microphone, I try and get sometimes change it too late.
Right.
And I don't know how we get past that, because that pretty much is unless the assembly morphs into something completely different than how they've been operating and it looks like the your members continue to operate. We're not gonna get anywhere, no matter what we do, and scorecards and QR codes.
And that's,
So will that address, address that?
yeah, I mean, that's part of what we're gonna figure out is, how does the greater community feel? Is there a lot of consensus? I mean, I personally, anecdotally, could say I know a lot of people who agree with you and have that same experience. And so then what the Civic League is gonna come in and say, like, your community is not, they're saying this. They're asking for change. They're saying that what you're doing isn't working. Here are some ways to try something different. So it's to address that exact thing. We have changed quite a bit. We are not where we were, especially at the beginning of community councils, but even in the past like 10, 20 years, we've seen quite a bit of change in the way testimony works, and it's not getting better. And so this program is to kind of point that out. And the assembly, when I talk to them individually, understand that, but to have the opportunity to say, we want to invite you into this conversation, assembly. We want you to be part of the solution, and we're gonna help give you some ideas about how to make this better. Is such a rare opportunity to have, and then to have that as like at the scale of Anchorage is incredibly difficult. So I'm excited and have talked to assembly members about this project from all over, kind of being like, this is coming. I'm excited. Be ready. So it's to get at exactly that we don't have the civic engagement that we used to, and how can we get to a place where people do feel heard, or that change, people feel like they are making a difference.
We've got at 8 o'clock, and we'll take, I think, 2 more questions, or was it 3 more questions?
1, 2.
1, 2, 3, 3. Steve. Sarah, or Charles? Or was it Charlie and Sarah? Oh, it's okay.
Okay, cool. So, my understanding, this is a grant.
So it's not a grant to us. Essentially, what we're doing is partnering with the National Civic League. Their work is funded.
Okay,
So-
their work's funded.
Yeah.
So.
Their like quote unquote consulting work is funded. And so
You're
that's,
gonna take the data, give them, they're gonna analyze.
they're
Right.
helping us create all the marketing, communications, helping us create the survey, like, I put my hands in everything, but yeah, they're the ones providing the recommendations. They're the ones because they're the experts in this. They work nationally to promote civic engagement and have worked with a ton of different cities and know way more options than I do. And have the leverage of being a national organization with a lot of experience, which I am not. So they're gonna be heard.
Alright, so. We're not getting any money yet,
We're not getting money,
We're not paying it.
but we're not paying.
but it's just more stuff to do, council, we have
Yeah.
stuff that needs. done.
You don't have
Let's-
to do anything at
yeah,
a community
yeah.
council meeting. You have a say like, come up there and you say, hey, people, fill that
Oh,
out, please.
yeah, but once again, we got people who aren't very good with QR codes.
Yeah, and you know what, if the feedback from community council meetings is, we don't see a lot of a lot of people filling out scorecards, it's not like, it's no harm, no foul. Their goal is actually the assembly. We just get locked in that they're including community councils in this.
Okay, so you're including community councils as part of the deal to
Right.
get to assembly.
Right, because they are really interested in the way we work. I don't even have to encourage them, they're like super
Alright.
interested in us.
So I mean, the assemblies.
And
Right.
they've done this in a bunch of other cities, so this format works for them, or they've done it in 3 cities, but then they have some similar versions of this. So this format works for them to be able to get feedback. It's a tested.
Well, because the plan changed, get the assembly to change the way we testify.
The plan is to get the assembly to consider alternative ways than 3-minute testimony or
Well, you can,
engagement.
we can already testify by phone, by writing, all your
Think about it this way, that when people testify is also part of the question. It's not just.
Well, that means way more important than testifying, is when
Yeah,
to
right.
testify,
This is
when
part,
to
this is
get
part
into
of the
it.
general.
Right, but also even within the meeting, right, when testimony happens, it's kind of inequitable for Girdwood and Eagle River residents in comparison to anyone in the bowl. And so if we talk about like just that, if we look at just the 3-minute testimony, you show up to a meeting, it may or may not be on the agenda because things change. It may or may not get moved because the agenda changes. And then you spend all your time and you drive there and you wait for however many hours to testify, and then maybe it gets canceled, or maybe you just found out about it, so you missed the cutoff to send it. Like there's already so many hiccups that occur, so many inequities that occur just in the 3-minute testimony, that the question here is, hey, Assembly, why are you leaning just on the 3-minute? I believe in the 3-minute testimony as like what needs to happen. I think that there is just that level. It's tradition in the US to have that kind of testimony. The question is, does that have to be it?
Is that in there, is it in the California?
Can we,
charter?
we're already over time, so I just want to get to the last 2 questions and then we can continue this discussion later, but.
Yeah, so I just wanna say, as someone who does this for work and is someone who does this for work, like the data itself is really powerful. So we know what's working, what's not working anecdotally, but if we can hand them, 50,000 people said X, Y, Z, and that is 70% of like graphs and charts.
Right.
Make a difference compared to the emails that it's not a standard vocabulary that's talking to each other.
Right.
So yeah, we are the experts in this room and we do know that, but handing over someone who said that they're willing to cooperate, which it sounds like if it passes on Tuesday, they're willing to cooperate with an experiment. I think that's really powerful, and it will also tell the community, hey, we're changing it because you said this. Like this is our justification. And then my question is, do you see the raw data or just the
I don't know.
charts?
Right, that's kind of wrong.
Yeah.
Why we couldn't see the raw
Right.
data. It's anonymized. People can opt in to put in their email for the general survey to like receive updates about the project, but that would hit the rest. We're just collecting some basic generic data about like race, ethnicity, sex, that kind of stuff. I will also add to your first point, the thing that I hear all the time about community councils is that you guys aren't representative. And I don't think that's fair because you can't paint with a broad brush, but how powerful is it gonna be to be able to say, hey, look at all of these people who agree with us. That you say we're not representative, but our voice is just as important because all these other people agree with us. And I try to tell people, especially in the assembly, you can't just dismiss the people who are showing up because you don't agree with them. You have to say yes and then invite more people into the room. And so that's what we're trying to do. We say like, you guys are the people in the room and I love and appreciate all of you for showing up and doing that. And then how do we bring more people in? How do I bring them into community councils? How do I bring them into assembly chambers? How do we bring them into boards and commissions? So that being able to be like, I know you're not listening to us because we're community councils and we're not representative. This is like a step beyond that. This is saying we want more. I think we have Charlie.
Charlie, how much of a buy-in is there with the assembly? Because from my experience in working with one part of an organization, dealing with another part of an organization, the other part of the organization always knows so much more than anybody else, and they're the ones who are making the rules or making the changes. They're perfect now, why change?
Yeah.
So what this ordinance that you're introducing, it's just to allow the collection of the data, correct?
It's essentially to have it's a resolution of support of the project.
It's just a resolution, it's not an ordinance, it's just a resolution.
Not an ordinance.
Okay, just a
Not-
resolution.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think like we're not in a position to ask that, we don't want that. But I mean, I've personally individually talked to 5 assembly members and they're on board with the project. Plus one-on-one, correct. Plus I talked to members of the administration and municipal employees at like higher levels, and a lot of them are on board with the project. I won't know for sure till the resolution, right? And my hope is that it just passes unanimously and we can call it a day. But I don't know if they're gonna really say that they don't support a free grant that provides us data on civic engagement, if we have maybe a second conversation now. I think there's like a bigger problem there, right? Because I am giving them like the turkey on the platter of projects. They have very little that they need to do for essentially 8 months, other than show up and like share the information and then participate a little bit, and we're gonna get a bunch of information, like what better ask? And it's free. And it's paid for, like, come on, guys. So, and I will say at the work session, we had what I would consider the normal pushback of, this is just about community councils, and it was like, it's not, it's about civic engagement generally. The hiccup gets to me. But I think some of that was just the postulating that can sometimes happen, where people both agree with community councils and concepts, but then when they come up against the tension, struggle to not just be a naysayer. But I feel like generally they were really supportive of the idea, the people in that room. And some of those people were people I had to talk to. So again, if they really don't like it, I'm gonna have a different conversation. Let me tell you, because this is a super rare opportunity, and this grant is gonna end in like a year and a half, and we probably won't be able to do it again, and then we'd have to pay National Civic League $100,000.
I'm gonna interrupt you and say, I think we should move to adjourn. Thank you. So we can continue, we are gonna continue this discussion. Thank you, Ari.
Yes.
Not there yet.
We just had a, we had.
Thank you. Okay.
That's.
Thank you.